If there are two or more sets of Urim and Thummim, then at least theoretically it would be due to the need to have more than one operating simultaneously. If the Lord needed Aaron and his successors to have a Urim and Thummim, and at the same time he required another seer in another part of the world, then another Urim and Thummim becomes necessary. Conversely, if the Lord requires only one seer on earth at a time, then only one Urim and Thummim is necessary. There are powers and gifts which the Lord gives to only one man on the earth at a time. This is true, for example, of the keys to the fullness of the priesthood. The Lord informed Joseph Smith of this fact when explaining these keys and its associated sealing power. We also know that Joseph was a seer, and to date is the only man who has possessed and used the Urim and Thummim in this dispensation. He is the only man to qualify as a seer under the ancient definition. When Helaman died, his son Nephi became the chief judge over the Nephites. As chief judge, Nephi had charge of the records and all the sacred things, including the interpreters. When he departed out of the land, he gave charge to his son to keep them in his stead. Having possession of the interpreters among those sacred things, Nephi qualified as a seer. Nephi was also given the sealing power, meaning he received the keys to the fullness of the priesthood. Like Joseph Smith, Nephi was the only one on earth in his time who had the keys to the fullness of the priesthood and simultaneously was a seer. Abraham was given the Urim and Thummim by the Lord, as we have cited previously. He qualified as a seer. In the same revelation to Joseph Smith, where the Lord explains the keys of the fullness of the priesthood, and that only one man on earth at a time holds these keys, he further commands Joseph to do the works of Abraham. To do the works of Abraham, Joseph must enter into the law of the Lord's holy priesthood. He must receive the fullness of the priesthood and its keys as Abraham did before him. Before both Nephi and Joseph Smith, Abraham held the keys to the fullness of the priesthood and possessed the Urim and Thummim. He was the only man on earth with the keys and the interpreters. The examples of Joseph, Nephi, and Abraham suggest there is a relationship or connection between the possession of the keys of the fullness of the priesthood and the interpreters, the Urim and Thummim. But there is compelling evidence that makes the connection explicit. From the beginning, seership, the possession of the interpreters, and kingship, the holding of the keys to the fullness of the priesthood, are inseparably bound together. King Mosiah made it crystal clear that the Urim and Thummim, the interpreters as he called them, were made by God before the creation of the world. God gave them to the first man Adam. These two stones were then passed down the generations. When Mosiah speaks of generations, he can only be referring to the generations of the patriarchs. Adam, the first patriarch, passed the Urim and Thummim to Seth, his son, who passed them to Enos, and so on down the chain of patriarchal priesthood. The generations of Adam are recorded in the book of the generations of Adam, which in turn is recorded in the 5th chapter of Genesis. Chapter 5 records the generations from Adam down to Noah and his sons.